All right, hey, good morning, Valley View. Those of you that are here in the auditorium, glad to see you all. Glad that you're here today. And those of you joining us online, I also want to welcome you here. Thrilled that you're joining us as well. We love you. Glad that you're a part of us as well today. So, hey, where are runners at? Are you a runner? Raise your hand. Raise your hand if you're a runner. Oh, what? Really? Zero. There are zero hands. Oh, okay, all right, okay, right in front of me, Suzette, sorry. Okay, all right, okay, yeah, all right. Okay, all right, so let the record show online there's three runners here. I don't know, maybe some of you don't want to classify yourself as a runner. That's okay, I understand. But this last couple of weeks, we've been talking about this idea of running. We talked about running to, running from, running with, and today we're going to be talking about running for. So I want you to open up your Bibles and hang in, but you just kind of hang there for a little while in Hebrews chapter 12. So, but I'm curious about you all as runners, the three of you. So the rest of you guys, I don't know what you want to do. I want to talk to these runners for a second. Maybe you used to be a runner like me. I used to run. When I was growing up, I played soccer. And so, there's a lot of running in soccer, as you could probably figure out. And then I also ran track and cross country. So that all worked out really well for a person to, if you're playing soccer, I mean, you're just going to be a runner. So I did that. I was better at long distance running than short distance running. But in junior high, I was the anchor leg for the 4x100. And I loved that spot, even though I probably wasn't the best sprinter. But as long as my team, the rest of the guys, got a good lead, I could generally hold it and then finish okay. But that was my experience with it. But the best part of track meets wasn't the long day of a track meet. Man, those are forever. So if you're a parent and your kid runs track and they invite you to come to their track meet, bring some books, sunscreen, umbrella, something to do, man, because those things are long. All right? I don't know if any of you guys run track down here? Maybe. Okay. All right. All right, Braylon. Okay. All right. So, but those are my favorite part was not the long day, but obviously the best part was if you got a medal. And I'm sure they were cheap medals that we got, but our coaches used to always encourage us, because when we were at the meets, classes would all be done by the time the track meet was done because they take forever. And so the coaches always told us, you better put those medals on tomorrow when you come to school and show those medals off. And we would do that, and we enjoyed doing that. But I got a question for you. If you are a runner, and you might have asked this question before, why do runners run? Have you ever wondered that question? Well, probably not, because none of y'all are runners. maybe you have. You're like, why do you run? If you're a runner, why do you run? It's interesting. Some people talk about getting a runner's high. And I don't know if maybe in the past, if you ran, did you ever get what's called a runner's high? That's somewhere along the line that you're running. And, back when I was, it was just a couple years ago before I had a bazillion surgeries on my knee and foot. When I tried to run, I felt like the first half mile was just awful. I couldn't breathe well, even though I was in decent shape, couldn't breathe well. My body was just, but then after that first half mile, okay, I got into a rhythm. My cardiovascular system just started kind of calming down and working out all right. And, but people will talk about a runner's high, and some scientists kind of think it's this stage of running where your body's endorphins begin to just kick in and you don't feel as much pain. And you just kind of get this really good sensation. And it's okay to run. And my theory is, man, if more of us got that runner's high right off the bat, I think everybody in this room would be runners, right? If you got that runner's high, you don't feel any pain, raise your hand if that would be, if you got runner's high right off the bat, would you run? All right, maybe. Some people ran, whenever I was back in the day, they would run because they wanted to stay in shape for another sport, especially like in high school, middle school. They may not have cared at all about running, but they knew in order to play basketball or whatever, they just needed to stay in shape. And so sometimes you would go to a race, like a cross-country race or track meet or something like that, and you could tell pretty quickly who the real runners are and who the real runners are not. So my second-born son, Malachi, He used to run cross country. And one time he was out in a race up in Denton. And this wasn't just like your average cross country meet when you're running through a park. They put like some obstacles in this thing, things to jump over. They put some mud in it. And, well, just watch what happened at this one. Show that again. That's my favorite. Show that again. Can we run that again? I don't think that guy was like a true runner. He just had to figure it out. Like, you know, I'm going to make the most of this thing. In case you couldn't see that, it's a kid, you know, running and doing a cannonball in the mud. Running and jumping, doing a cannonball in the mud. So that person just had to make their own fun with running. Why do you run? Why do people run? I was talking, my wife, she and I were kind of visiting about this, and I'll tell you a secret. Jenny doesn't like to run, okay? In fact, Jenny says this, if I'm running, you should probably be too. Because something bad's about to happen. A kid's in trouble, a bear's chasing you, or something, I don't know. So let the record show that if you see my wife running, you should be running too, all right? Anybody else in here like that? Raise your hand. Anybody else? I don't run, but if you see me running, you better be moving too. All right, I get it. Some people run because it just simply makes them feel good. They know it promotes good health, and it does. Helps with the cardiovascular system, musculoskeletal system, brain health even. You all probably know this stuff. I don't know. You're not runners, so I don't know. Maybe you don't know this. But it's good for you. Most people run because the end result is worth it. There's a guy named Eric Liddell. So if you've been around Christian culture for many years, you probably know about him. If you don't, let me tell you a little bit about him. Eric Liddell was a famous Scottish Olympian sprinter in the 1920s, and he went on to be a missionary to China. And in fact, he died on the mission field in China. But in the 1920s, Eric Liddell was well known as a sprinter. He was also well known because he was a very committed Christian, a very strong Christian. And he famously refused to run races on Sundays because he felt like that was a Sabbath day to the Lord, a day where he just wanted to focus on the Lord and pay attention to that. And it caused a lot of issues with the British Olympic Committee. He was like, what's your problem, man? Just run. But it's just part of his convictions. He's like, I'm not going to do that. In the 1924 Olympics in Paris, because he did not run on a Sunday, he missed a race, a 100-meter dash that he could have run, or that he could have won, but he missed it because he was actually preaching at a church on that Sunday. But then later in that Olympics, though, he went on to win the bronze medal in the 200-meter run, which nobody from Great Britain had ever won that race. They've never medaled in that race. And then he went on even a couple days later to run the 400-meter run, and he won that race by 5 meters. And he had set a world record time of 47.6 seconds. Do we have that picture? Maybe you popped it up. I just missed it. But we have a picture of him with that. Look at that. It's a famous picture of him just head up, just excited. I mean, all the stress of all the other stuff that was happening, but yet here he was. Man, look at those outfits. People don't run in that stuff anymore. They wear these yucky short shorts or, compression shorts or whatever. But, man, this guy set a world record at the time. But he said something. There's a famous movie called Chariots of Fire. And in that movie, Liddell says this, because he's wrestling with running, but also this call. He felt called, and this purpose in his life was to actually be a missionary to China. But he was struggling with that just a little bit because he's also good at running. I mean, he was in the Olympics, for crying out loud. And he says this, God made me for a purpose, and that's to go to China. But I'm also fast. And he says this, when I run, I feel his pleasure. I think that was kind of a cool thought. Now here's this man that he knew that like his purpose in life was ultimately to just go to China, but he also recognized that I've got a skill here And I've got a platform that God has given me to do something with it and to just basically, showcase God by doing well running. The truth is, most people run because they can look past or they can even look through the pain of running, the pain of training and all those kinds of things, and they can look ahead and they see something that's worth it. Whether it's glory, like a medal or your name on a plaque or a trophy, whatever the case may be, or they look down the track and they see this, maybe setting a personal record for the race that you won. You're like, man, I've never done it this way, and here I am, just conquering this again and again. Or maybe it's their family cheering them on. I don't know if you've ever run a 5K or a marathon or things like that. Probably not, because you're not runners, but just imagine. I'm being sarcastic, okay? But imagine your family is just sitting there cheering you on, holding up signs, saying, come on, Mom, you can do this. You've got this. That's a big deal. And then suddenly, it doesn't always matter how you started the race, but it matters how you persevered and you finished the race. And I've talked to some of you. I know some of you in here have run some marathons or half marathons or 5Ks or things like that. And it was a big deal for you to do that because you had to persevere, because you recognize the end goal is worth all the frustration here, all the sore knees and all the sore ankles and things like that. The end goal was worth it. And so we've been talking in this series about running. The idea is like running your race to follow Jesus. That it's kind of like a race. And in fact, it's more like a marathon. It's not always a sprint, boom, then you're done. But it's this long race of following Jesus, of paying attention to him and working towards the finish line. So I told you to be in Hebrews chapter 12, so let's get there. Here we go. It says this. Well, let me back up for a second. Prior to Hebrews 12 is Hebrews 11, which I know the last couple of weeks, Jonah and Joe have mentioned this, that Hebrews 11, we know this as like the hall of faith. And the author lists several men and women all throughout history who have shown great faith in God. They didn't understand how certain things were going to work out, but they just had faith in God. They knew that God's got it, and some amazing things happened because of their faith. So that's the backdrop here. Then you get to chapter 12 right after that, and it says that, therefore, in other words, we've got all these men and women who've gone before us. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, those men and women of faith, like a big arena of men and women who've been following the Lord and being faithful to him. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let's throw off everything that hinders in this sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer, some translations will say like the author, the pioneer and the perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, talking about Jesus, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and he sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. So if I were to summarize this text, this is kind of the idea in my mind. We've got lots of men and women over the ages who've shown great faith, even in the midst of adversity, and now they're witnesses. They've gone on to eternity, and now they are witnesses both of the value of being faithful to God and the worthiness of our future glory, being in the presence of God. They're witnesses of that. And perhaps they're also witnesses of us running the race. Jesus on the Mount of Transfiguration, he's got a couple of guys like cheering him on as well, Moses and Elijah, cheering him on and encouraging him. I tend to believe it's kind of a little both here. These men and women are witnesses of the fact that, man, it's worth it. Staying faithful to the end, it's worth it. We're in the presence of God, it is worth it, church. And also, they're saying this, come on. You can do it too. If we can do it with all our opposition, you can do it too. Come on. They're on the sidelines cheering for us. Cheering for you. Because of their witness, let's join this race too and do whatever it takes to throw off the things that trip us up and slow us down. We can do this by fixing our eyes on the destination, and that's Jesus. And he's the ultimate example of pushing through the opposition and the hardship to reach the glory at the end. That's how you do it. You fix your eyes on Jesus. You fix your eyes on Jesus. So we're challenged to run with perseverance, to hang on. Perseverance, you don't run with perseverance when everything is just simple and easy. You run with perseverance when it's hard, when it's tough. You stick it out. You have grit. You keep moving. We're challenged to run with perseverance the race set out before us. There's a marked course set out there for us. Just like on a track meet, there's a course that you run. You don't just run over here to the concession stand for a while during your race and get some nachos and jump back in and go again. You don't do that, right? You stay on the course. You stay and you keep moving. There's a course marked out for us. And God has one marked out for you too. It's to follow in the footsteps of Jesus. I think you know that. I hope you know that as a follower of Jesus. I say this a lot from stage here. It's like cross-eyed living. You got one eye kind of looking ahead at what you're doing here on this planet, at your work, in your family, and things like that. You're looking at that, trying to make good and wise decisions, but you also got one eye looking up to the Lord. God, what would you have me do in these moments with my coworker that I'm frustrated with, or whatever the case may be? But you're moving along. You're following Jesus as you move along through life. You're looking at the world that we live in today through a lens of Jesus. How would Jesus handle this? The text tells us the way to run with perseverance is to fix our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and the perfecter of faith. What does that mean? Jesus is the one he's run the path before us, right? I mean, God saw us in our sin and in our mess, and he sent Jesus, his son, to come to the very earth that he created, to take on the constraints of being a human, sweat, splinters, all those kinds of things, and yet stay faithful to God the Father. Jesus is the one who's run that path before us, and he's the example. Following his example is how we win the race, how we finish that race. And I think of it in this way. Following Jesus, okay, how? Here's just kind of some things to consider about Jesus' example. He was obedient to God the Father. He's paying attention to God, listening to God. God, what would you want from me in this situation? Why would you not, as you're driving into work, why would you not just talk to God and just be like, God, today could be a rough one. You know the different meetings I've got. This one could be a little rough. Man, talk to him about it. And be obedient to him. Be obedient to him to what he might be calling you to. Maybe it's talking to a neighbor, inviting them to church. Maybe it's taking a step of faith in being generous, whatever the case may be. But being obedient to God. Jesus is also, he sought after God in prayer on a regular basis. Jesus did that. Jesus spent time praying with God, praying to God. He didn't just kind of like walk around and be like, well, I think, today I'm just going to do this. But he paid attention to what God wanted of him. This is how you finish and run the race, is you pay attention, you pray, you seek after God. Jesus' other example, his teachings, loving your enemies. Loving your enemies. Church, we need that right now more than ever in this culture, I know. When we follow those kinds of teaching, that's how we're fixing our eyes on Jesus. This is how you finish the race. This is the race. This is what you do. And then Jesus' example of sacrificial love. He ran for the good of you and me, not for his own good, but for our good. He ran for our good. Sacrificial. He gave up something for us so that we can have eternity with him. And is that how you are known? Is that how we as a church are known? Sacrificial love? I mean, I don't know about this, but I'm going to, because I want good for you, I'm going to sacrifice something for your good. The race marked out for us. In a race, it messes up your cadence and focus if you turn your head side to side. It's funny when I go to a middle school track meet and, seeing these kids like running and they know they're doing okay, but all of a sudden they seem to start looking around like that. And our coaches used to get so mad at us for doing that because it slows you down. When you look behind, and you look side to side, it slows you down. You've got to focus on the finish line. So we focus on the path ahead as Christians. And we see Jesus, we've got a path, and we see Jesus at the end. Don't turn aside to the right or the left, but focus on Jesus. Pray to him. Talking to him, seek him out. When you're driving into work, pretend like he's sitting in the car seat next to you, and just start talking to him. Nobody else is in that car with you, I think. I don't know. But, just start talking to him like he's there. He loves to hear from his children. He loves to hear from you. You may not be like a flowery prayer with all these things. Just be honest. Just talk to him like he's there. Listen to him. What's he saying back? Read about what Jesus did and he said. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Man, if you're just like, what is this Christian thing, following Jesus? Start there. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Just read those things. What is Jesus doing? What is he saying? How is he treating people? What if you were there sitting at the feet of Jesus and you're looking around, what would you see? What would you smell? What would you hear? And then go do what Jesus did. Treat people how Jesus treated people. Love people how Jesus loved people. Speak truth to people in grace and truth. The text says this, for the joy set before him, he endured the cross. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross. I don't want to go into this a whole lot, but a cross was a torture device at that time. It was meant to inflict pain, of course, but more than that, it was meant to inflict humiliation. To be naked, or at least partially naked, stripped, beaten, mocked, made fun of. The text says, for the joy set before him, he endured the cross. You see, he knew that he had to walk through this cross in the shame and the humiliation and the taunting and the being made fun of in order to get over here. The glory, the joy. There's joy at the end of that. He was willing to push through that for you and for me. Jesus knew that the ultimate joy, his suffering for the sins of mankind. He suffered for you and I. He knew that the ultimate joy his suffering for the sins of mankind would bring. He understood that. He brought salvation, which is deliverance from sin's death march in our world. He brought you salvation. He brought this church, the church. He brought us salvation to those who believe in him. He was willing to endure all this because he was joyful at the fact that you could be right with God. That separation between you and myself and God because of our sins, Jesus is like, I'm willing to pay this and endure this because, man, this is going to be fantastic and this is going to be amazing. He was willing to walk through hell to get you to be right with him. That's how much he loves you. Amen, church? Amen. It brought him joy to know that the finished work he did would make us right with God and that we can now share in community with God and with one another. Listen, faith often requires hardship and difficulty in order for it to be perfected or be made complete. Jesus is the pioneer, he's also the perfecter of our faith, making it complete. And to make it complete, it's not like a happy-go-lucky life every day as a Christian, but it's hard sometimes, right? It is hard. And we go through difficulties. We go through hard seasons of hit after hit after hit after hit, even as Christians. But that's part of the completing our faith. Will you stay faithful even in the midst of some hard junk in your life? Jesus is our pioneer in that he did that for us. And the author's saying like, hey, look to him. When you're going through hard stuff right now, look to him. He endured all this mess for the joy that's on the other side. The text says this, for the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, It means that Jesus treated that temporary suffering and shame of being publicly taunted, humiliated, stripped, beaten for our sins. He treated that as insignificant or of little consequence when compared with the glory that was going to follow for you to be made right with God. He scorned that. He's like, man, that's nothing compared to this over here. Back to Eric Liddell. 1 year before that pivotal time at the Olympics, the 1924 Olympics in Paris, Eric Liddell, he ran in a meet that was between England, Ireland, and Scotland. He ran the 100, the 200, and the 400 meter events in that race. And in the 400, he got off to a bad start. When the gun sounded, there was a lot of shoving to get in front to the inside lane, which is a very advantageous position to get into. And Liddell got tangled up with another runner from England named J.J. Gillies, and he tumbled to the track. Liddell he fell down. He gets his feet all tangled up, and he falls down. And he sat there dazed for a minute, not knowing, should I just give up now or should I not? But then this official, one of the race officials, he screamed at Liddell like, get up and run. Get up and run. And as he's laying there dazed and like, he hears that. He's like, okay. And so he just rises up and he takes off and he jumps to his feet and he starts running after that pack that's now like 20 meters in front of him. And in a 400-meter run, that's almost insurmountable. But he takes off, and in his weird style of running, he takes off after the pack, and pretty soon he's in fourth place, about 10 meters behind the leader, Gillies. With 40 meters to go, he pulls into third place, and then second, and then right at the finish line, he passed Gillies. He stuck his chest out, and he won the race, and he collapsed on the track out of exhaustion. Right? I mean, some of you are like, man, if I ran 10 meters, I'd be running out. But the medical personnel had to assist him off the track that day. Man, he gave everything. He gave it all to just get up and keep moving. There's something glorious about getting up off the ground, off the track, when you've been knocked down. But you get up and you keep moving again. And some of you need to hear that today because you've been knocked down. Maybe you got off to a bad start. Maybe you started well, but somewhere in the middle around that first curve, you fumbled. And maybe you've gotten tangled up. Maybe you were caught looking at the guy carrying nachos over there and you just tripped and fell. I don't know, whatever the case may be, you get distracted. And you know that, man, right now my life is not right with the Lord. Get up and run. Get up and run. Jesus, these saints of old, get up and run. You could do it. Get up and run. These people in the stands are, in the heavenlies that we don't see, they're like, man, it's worth it. Get up and run. Get up and run. Sometimes we get distracted by shiny objects in our race. We lose our sense of purpose for running the race. We forget that we got to fix our eyes on Jesus. We get messed up with various purposes in life sometimes. As we're running, we just kind of look over here. Oh, we need to make more money. I got to work, and make more money. Running over this way, and I'll see you over here. Oh, well, I'm going to be busy with I want to be an influencer. I want people to just, like all the stuff that I post out there. None of these things are bad in and of themselves, but sometimes they can distract us from what's over here, from the glory over here. As a follower of Jesus, remember this. Our goal is not to be millionaires when we die. Somebody else is going to get that money. You ain't going to take that anywhere. As a follower of Jesus, we've died to our old ways of life, and we've been resurrected to walk in a new life. These things over here, that doesn't define you anymore. But we've been resurrected to a new life where we become more and more like Jesus over time. Listen, if the longer you're a Christian, you should become more and more like Jesus. Not more cranky, We should be changing for the better the longer we follow Jesus. More patient, more kind, more loving, more sacrificial. People to tell the truth. Simple stuff over time. That is our goal as we're running the race. Sometimes we're going to trip and fall. Jesus is saying, the crowd of witnesses are saying, get up and run. I have news for you. You may or may not know this. You're going to die someday. Beneath a church in Rome, there's a burial place called the Capuchin Crypt. And above all these bones is ossuary where they keep all the bones. It's kind of a creepy picture, by the way. I was going to post one here, but it's a little creepy. But above this ossuary, there's phrases carved into the wall where all these bones are. There's this phrase in Latin, and here's what it means in English. It says this: what you are now, we used to be. What we are now, you will be. Get it? The dead are speaking out like, hey, look, we used to be like you too. We used to be like top dog about everything. Yeah, we used to be that too. Someday you're going to be like us. You're going to die someday. And after your race is done, you'll pass away into eternity. And what will be said of you? Look at this text from Paul's second letter to Timothy, one of his proteges, so to speak. This is from 2 Timothy chapter 4. It says this. Paul says this. He says, for I'm already being poured out like a drink offering. My life is quickly going. And the time for my departure is near. I've fought the good fight. I've finished the race. And this is phrase, I've kept the faith. Now there's in store for me the crown of righteousness. Not one of those little, crowns that they would give in the Roman Olympics and things like that would just, made of plants and all that stuff, and it would just die, after a week or so. This is an eternal crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award me on that day, not only to me, but also to all who have longed for his appearing. Paul knows his death is coming soon. And he looks back over his life of following Jesus. He didn't always follow Jesus. We've talked about this before. He used to murder Christians, as a matter of fact. But then his life got radically changed by Jesus. He says, I've fought the good fight. I've finished the race. I've kept the faith. Friends, Paul had struggles too. Yeah, he wrote a lot of the New Testament. Godly man, but read Romans 7. Man, he had some struggles. He tripped a few times. Just like you, just like me. But he kept running, and to where he was able to say at the end of his life, man, I finished the race and I've kept the faith. Through it all, he stayed on course of faithfulness to God, and now he looks forward to this crown of righteousness that God will give him because of Jesus. Because he kept his eyes on Jesus, and he finishes the race, and God's like, boom, here's your crown. Not because of anything you did, but because of what my son did on your behalf. And you finished the race, and boom, this is for you. He saw that, and he was ready for that. In the scriptures, we see Paul running a marathon, not a sprint. It's faithfulness to God over the long term. As in any race, there's moments when you struggle, but you push through it, church. You adjust as necessary, and you keep moving forward. Get up and run. Get up and run. Some races you run alone. And in one of my favorite races to run and to watch in the Olympics is the 4x100 meter relay. I mean, that thing, boom, 4 guys running 100 meters, and it's fast. It is so fast. And every little bit of it matters. Obviously, the pace that you're running, that you're focused on the next person that you're going to hand off to, the handoffs matter, right? You could win or lose a race if you don't hand off well. Our coaches would always just say, like, okay, you're going to you're going to mark off the path back here about 10 meters or so. You're going to put a piece of tape in there. When your guy that has got the baton that's coming to you, When he hits that, you take off sprinting also. You get your hand back there, and boom, that guy's going to hand it to you. And if you can't make that work like clockwork, you're going to fumble this, you're going to be disqualified, whatever the case may be, or you're just going to lose the race. Paul didn't hold on to his faith and just kind of keep it private. I'm not going to say a whole lot about it. But Paul knew he had to talk about Jesus. He had to get it out there. He had to run this race with the baton, and he knew he was about to die. And so he was going to hand this baton off to a young guy named Timothy and many, many others. And I benefit today, you benefit today from Paul, not just holding on to this and his faith and just keeping it, but he passed it on. And church, the question is for you, who are you going to pass the faith on in your life? You've got a race to run. You're going to fall, but get up and run. Pick this up. Somebody in your life needs this as well. You needs to be handed the faith back to them. That could be your children or your grandchildren. Talk to them about your faith. It's not too late. Even if you have adult children that don't care that you're into this Jesus thing, I understand that's hard. I get it. But part of your running, you could be like this. You know what, son? I've not been a great example, but I want you to know just something that's important in my life. You may not agree or not. I don't know, but I need you to hear this from me. My life has been changed by Jesus. I'm not the man I used to be. I'm not perfect. I've fumbled the ball. I've dropped the baton. I've tripped. But I'm getting up. And I just want you to know that he's the most important thing in my life right now. And, you know, if you ever want to talk about it, I'm here. Maybe you need to have a conversation like that with your coworker. Just be honest. Somebody needs to hear. When you tuck your kids in bed at night, listen, Kids View, Preview, the student ministry, when you check your kids out, check them in, check them out. There are resources on the wall there that we believe so much that you need to have some tools for how to pass the faith to your children. There are tools on that wall. There's some examples of some great books to read to your kids and just teach them the faith. There's no excuse. You can run this race too. Your kids need the baton. You can do it. Let the church help. But you got to play a role too. It's both of us working together. Friends, this past year we've had a lot of deaths of people here in our congregation. Those are hard. And some of these people have been faithful to Valley View for a long time. Faithful to God, first and foremost, let me clarify that. But also committed to this congregation here. They've been generously giving because they want you to experience God. They want your kids to experience some good times. And so they've given financially, given of their time, whatever the case may be, because they're running this race too, and they're trying to pass it on to you. Will you pick this up and take it and run? Carry on. Carry on the faith in Jesus. Your kids need to hear it. Your coworkers need to hear this. Your grandkids, people here in this church, older people, you're not done yet. You need to pass this on. Younger people, don't be afraid of older people. You need them. You need somebody to look to be like, this is what life was like when my marriage was hard, but I stuck it out by the grace of God. You can do it too. Young people, you'll never hear that if you just always stay sequestered. Old people, you can't pass that along if you always stay sequestered and do your old people things. That ain't work. Church, run the race. Find somebody prayerfully. God, who is it? Somebody here in this congregation that I need to pass this baton to. Say like, hey, I don't know you, you don't know me. Can I grab coffee with you sometime? I just want to just check on you, whatever the case may be. I don't know, but friends, get up and run. Get up and run. There's witnesses. There's Jesus at the sidelines saying, come on, get up and run. Don't stop. You can do this. I'm with you. And it will be worth it. I want you just to take a minute to just reflect on this a little bit. What is God Spirit, what's he saying to you? I've been yapping, but God has something to say to you. Just a couple of questions to ask you as you reflect and think. Imagine your life as a race right now. Where are you looking? Are you looking at the finish line? Are you looking at Jesus, the pioneer and the perfecter of faith? Or are you distracted right now? You're just looking everywhere but forward. Get up and run. And the second question is this: who needs this baton? Somebody in your life. It's no accident who you encounter even today. Somebody needs this baton that you need to pass on. Who is that? Let me pray. We're just going to give you a few minutes to think about that. Let God's Spirit talk to you. O pioneer and perfecter of our faith, thank you for running the race. Thank you for showing us how it's done. Find us to be faithful runners. God, speak to us. Help us to focus on you. God, reveal to us today who needs this baton of faith passed on to them. God, speak. We're listening, God. Speak to us.